Good evening, and I'd like to call to order tonight's East Penn Board of School Directors meeting for September 26, 2022. All please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, our first order of business is our request to address the board. I have four. Before we begin, I have a statement I'd like to read. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with public comment, speakers should feel free to express their opinion, comment, or question, and understand that this is not an interactive engagement with the board or with the administration. Please direct your comments to the chair, be respectful, not engage in profane rhetoric, and be mindful that others, including students, may be listening. I would request that you consider that protocol when making your comments. For the members of the audience, please also be respectful and refrain from speaking during the public comment period. With that, I will now announce each speaker and their topic. When you step up to the podium, again state your name, and you'll have 3 minutes within which to speak. Our first requester tonight is Mr. Frank Dumbleton, who will speak as a follow-up to last meeting's remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a request. I have a little trouble hearing you at times, and it might help. I don't know if the others have that issue, but
Okay.
My name is Frank Dumbleton, and I'm a Lower Macungie resident. Last meeting, I expressed a growing concern about the East Penn results on math in the East Penn School District. I read on Facebook that one of the school board members here tried to discount the East Penn results because of the 10-year comparison. Our superintendent was good enough to clarify that at the meeting, and I appreciate that. And apparently, there was a change in the tests, although I don't feel like I have to verify that from Mrs. Campbell. So I'm willing to concede that the 10-year test is not a good comparison. I think that's fair. However, I'm not willing to concede the fact that the current situation and the current results today are of quality of what East Penn, I think, historically has done. So I want to remind the board of 3 facts I stated last time that, and disregard the 10-year comparison. The first fact is the rebuttal does not dispute that East Penn has a 45% math proficiency. Can't. East Penn, that's a Pennsylvania Department of Education number. That's 45%. The second rebuttal does not dispute that today Parkland and Southern Lehigh's results are 20 points higher than East Penn School District. We used to call ourselves the district of choice, as I've been told. I wasn't here, so I'm told that. I asked the question last time, why is that the difference? Why is there such a difference? 20 points on a 45% average is a lot. That's the last fact is that the rebuttal does not dispute that these numbers are the Pennsylvania Department of Education numbers. They come right from the webpage. I'd be glad to share that with any of you. And the Pennsylvania Department of Education says that East Penn has 55% of our students not proficient in math. That's what the website says. So these are the facts I wanted to clarify based on my comment about the 10-year issue or comparison. And if that's the case, I concede. But I still am concerned about the current results. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Dumbleton. Our next speaker tonight is Ms. Rebecca Colley, who's going to talk about book banning and inclusion.
Hello, thank you for letting me speak this evening. I've been watching online and listening to everybody and thought I'm going to come and give you kind of what I think. Schools are trying to support all of our children and their differences in this world where it's okay to be different and it's okay to be gay or trans. We tell them we support you being an authentic you, and that means that you feel that inside is who you can show on the outside. And I think our district does an awesome job with that. When my oldest son was a freshman in the Honors College, his summer reading assignment was Becoming Nicole. It's about a twin who grew up feeling that she was a girl rather than the boy that she was born. Anyway, when the book arrived, there was a note that said, "This is a summer Honors College reading and we'll discuss it in the first few weeks of school." I was proud of my son when he said, "Okay, cool, I'll read it." And then when he came home at Thanksgiving, I asked him about it. He said the book was really good. She became a famous actress, and they met her father because the story takes place in his college town. And don't worry, I'm not saying we should put that book. This is a honors college assignment. But what I am saying is that he was open to reading and he was open to understanding. And that's something, because he's in a school where he has gay and trans friends, that it was okay. And this is representative of the world that he's going to be growing and getting out of school and being into. So that's why I appreciate what this school district is doing. I'm also seeing a lot of rhetoric about banning books that aren't appropriate. And I think my 2 cents is we have school administrators, we have teachers, we have librarians who have sometimes 2 or 3 degrees so that they know what is appropriate for age-level children. And I, as a parent, can make a decision about my child and what my child is reading, but I don't think I should be making a decision about what's appropriate for another child. And I think our librarians and our teachers do an awesome job helping our children find books that are appropriate for them to read. When my son was in elementary school and he was reading way above his school level, he would go to the library and say, "Hey, what can I read?" And she would help him find a book that was appropriate for him at a higher level reading. I even went to Mrs. Vines, if anyone remembers Mrs. Vines, at the library and said, "Okay, he's in young adult now and he's in 4th grade. What can he read?" And she knew what to take him. So let's let the professionals make that decision and make that call. We talk about books at home. We would talk about all this at home with them. What are they reading? What do they like? What they don't like? I even read some of the books that he was reading, so I knew what he was reading. That's my job as a parent. So thank you very much for what you're doing. I think you're doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Colley. Our next speaker tonight is Ms. Sarah Taylor to talk about Panorama. Mrs. Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to speak about last year's Panorama Education contract with East Penn, which terminated on 6/30/2022. I can only speak to this contract because although a payment of $65,000 has been sent to Panorama this year, there was not a board presentation or approval of a new contract, and the existing one has expired. First, I have a few definitions from the contract itself. The contract states that, quote, "Client owns any data client inputs into the platform that identifies client or its students, staff, or parents, including authorized users," end quote. This is known as data. It further states in the contract that the client owns, and I quote, "any other data and content provided by client or authorized users to Panama or input into the platform such as survey questions," end quote, and this is known as other data. Data and other data are what are known contractually as client data, includes everything. Section 2.1, Part 2 of the contract states, quote, "Client hereby grants Panorama perpetual, irrevocable trust and license to copy, modify, and use client data to create aggregated, non-personally identifiable data or information," end quote. This essentially means that Panorama can use all information submitted to it as long as it's not identifiable. Although it says Panorama would use only non-personally identifiable data, the contract continues to state under Section 4.2 that, quote, "Upon any termination of this agreement for any reason, Panorama may, but is not obligated to, in its own discretion and without delivery of any notice to the client, delete any client data." So remember that client data refers to the identifiable information. As I mentioned before, this agreement ended June 30th of this year. Whether or not students' personal identification information regarding race, feelings, and relationships with families, teachers, or the school itself has been deleted is unknown to the public. But since another payment of the $65,000 has been sent, I would have to conclude that it is a continuous and there might be another agreement in force. This information has not been disclosed to parents. Neither have the background questions, which I don't know what you use for background questions, but I do know that many other school districts use questions regarding gender and transgender issues. There needs to be better transparency from this board and from the school. Parents need to know about this information. They need to know that all information from these surveys is transmitted via the internet where it is vulnerable to hacking or theft. Parents need to know that their children's responses to intrusive questions kept in perpetuity may influence their lives in years to come. I sincerely believe, having come to many meetings, that you all are good, decent people interested in our children's welfare. But I do have to ask, do you read the contracts that you approve, or do you simply rubber stamp them? Because I truly believe, had you read this knowing that Panorama did not have to delete our information, you might not have approved of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Okay, our final speaker tonight is Ms. Mary Ellen Jackson. Topic is Thanks and Parents for Equity in East Penn Schools, PEEPS update.
Good evening, I'm Mary Ellen Jackson. I'm a parent of a 12th and a 11th grader at East Penn High School. First tonight, I wanted to say thank you to all of the board members. This week in particular, maybe last week, there was a dedication of the cross-country track, and there were certain board members there. And I just want people to recognize that even though we might be sitting in front of us for 2 hours, the other things that you do. So it's really appreciated, and I was happy to say hello to you outside of this room for those of you who were there, so thank you. I wanted to give an update, and I'm not only going to update about PEEPS here, but the Parents for Equity in East Penn, we're still in our forming stages. We had our first meeting yesterday, actually, and it was really nice. I was able, Tessa Hulfish is the other leader that was able to be there, and we met people that we would have never met otherwise. People joined us just for conversations and coffee, and we really just talked about how are your kids doing at school. We all had the same idea about a sense of belonging for our kids and for the parents. And we're hoping that this group really takes off because we really felt like people were isolated or didn't necessarily know where to turn. As we all know, and we've heard from other people, discourse has gotten really uncivil lately between different groups of people. And that was recognized in our group, and we all realized that we just want our kids to be safe and happy. And we all want this sense of belonging for the parents and the students. So this is in public and on social media where the discourse has gotten really heated, particularly about banned books over this last week or so. And so I just wanted to say that and give the update. We will be having an October fall meeting again that's open to the public, and we'll be getting the information out there. We don't have a date. I don't know if you all know, October is really busy with school events. So we're trying to pick a time that'll work with more people, and it will likely be at the Lower Macungie Community Center. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Jackson. All right, moving on to next item in the agenda on minutes. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes from the September 12th, 2022 regular board meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments on the minutes? Seeing none, Ms. Allen, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Bowen?
Aye.
Mr. Byrd?
Aye.
Mr. Champagne?
Aye.
Mr. Falegi?
Aye.
Mr. Jankowski?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Dr. Whitney?
Aye.
Dr. Levinson?
Aye.
8 ayes.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Next item on the agenda is the district update from Dr. Campbell.
Good evening, thank you. I appreciate that public comment is actually, as per board policy, not designed to be an interactive process, but when there are questions or information that's shared publicly that I think is important for me to address, and when I'm able to do so, I always like to take the opportunity to do that. And so, in particular, I certainly appreciate all 4 of the community members who addressed the board this evening. And appreciate the questions and/or concerns raised by Ms. Taylor with regard to Panorama. I do want to clarify, or I should say, provide some factual information regarding Panorama. First, in terms of any contract or agreement, it is always reviewed by our legal counsel as well as our administrative team. With regard to concerns about identifiable data, Panorama uses non-identifiable district data to create a national data set that includes national benchmarks on data points that we have selected. So they're using district data in a non-identifiable format. And if you recall back to the multiple presentations that we have shared publicly in terms of our Panorama survey data, we did compare how East Penn students fared compared to the national average. And so again, it's for the purpose of creating that national average, that non-identifiable data would be used. The other piece that I wish to just reiterate in response to the concerns about transparency is every time we have administered or plan to administer the Panorama survey, we communicate to all East Penn families with regard to the grade levels in which, and the time frame in which we will be administering the survey online. We also provide families with the opportunity to review all of the questions that our students will be asked to respond, and families always have the opportunity to opt their child out of the survey. So again, just really had the information and thought it would be valuable to respond to that publicly. I do also appreciate our community member who recognized the recent collaboration between the district and the township, as well as the involvement of the board members, specifically at the dedication of Emmaus High School's cross-country course, which is now located at Camp Olympic. We were all very fortunate last Tuesday to be able to enjoy that special moment. It's really exciting because the Emmaus High School cross-country course really does represent a collaborative effort between our school district, our community members, and Lower Macungie Township. A special thank you to the individuals who really helped to make the course come to fruition, specifically Cammie Reinhard, who's our head cross-country coach, our athletic administrators, Becky George and Matt Spangler, Bud Coates, who's actually a staple from the Emmaus running community and seems to be known by many, as well as Lower Macungie Township. And also a special thank you to our high school administration and to Mr. Byrd, as well as Dr. Levinson, who represented the school board at the event. Speaking of running, I also want to give a special thank you to our Emmaus High School students, specifically the National Honor Society, as well as members of the high school cross-country team, who continue to volunteer at the Healthy Kids Running Series, which is held at Grange Park. Our students, our high school students, we're so very proud of them. They serve as great role models and help the young runners to prepare for their upcoming race. A few reminders. Time is running out to register for the second annual East Penn Education Foundation golf outing. That's actually rapidly approaching on October 3rd at Brookside Country Club. You can visit the East Penn Foundation website, which is linked to our district website, for more information on that special event. If you think back to last school year, it would have been when our high school administrative team was sharing our program of studies for Emmaus High School for the upcoming year, we referenced the fact that we would be offering a field study program. And that program has come to fruition this year and is being offered to Emmaus High School students. And so we, the district, are continuing to look for local businesses who would be interested in working with our highly motivated students who are seeking real-world hands-on experiences in a variety of careers. And so if there is any community member out there who is either a business owner and/or employed by an organization that might be interested in partnering with our high school students for the field study program, we ask that you please reach out to Mrs. Kelly Duffy, and her information is available on our East Penn website. I also am excited to announce that LCTI is holding its annual fall open house coming up on October 27th from 6 to 8 p.m. at LCTI in Schnecksville. And you can visit our district website or the LCTI website for more information on that open house. I'm excited to share as well that beginning on October 3rd, all East Penn students will be eligible to receive a free breakfast through our school breakfast program in each of our buildings. We're excited to offer this service that is part of a program that's offered throughout the state of Pennsylvania. And all students in East Penn are eligible to receive the free breakfast at our school breakfast program, regardless of their status in terms of lunch. And so again, the free breakfast program is in no way associated with a student's free or reduced rate during our lunchtime. And finally, as we get into the fall, Eyre Middle School is hosting again its annual Eyre Chili Cook-Off and Craft Fair. If you're interested, join them on Saturday, November 12th at Eyre Middle School. We're looking for both chili competitors as well as vendors. And you can check out the Eyre website for more information on that exciting community event. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Campbell. Are there any questions or comments from the members of the board? Mr. Jankowski?
I have a question regarding the panorama contract. So if I understand correctly, there were confidentiality provisions in there requiring the panorama to maintain the confidentiality of this information. Just as a doctor or hospital is required to keep a patient's information confidential, just as a bank's required to keep an individual's banking information confidential, sorry, just as an employer is required to keep an employee's information confidential. So based on the review of the contract, which I'm sure every one of us did review, Mr. Fisher, did we do anything in this contract that put this information at any greater risk than any other situation?
No.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jankowski. Any additional comments or questions? All right, well, thank you very much. Our next item on the agenda is personnel. May I have a motion to approve the personnel agenda?
So moved. Second.
Are there any questions or comments regarding the personnel agenda? Seeing none, Ms. Allen, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Byrd?
Aye.
Mr. Champagne?
Aye.
Mr. Falegi?
Aye.
Mr. Jankowski?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Dr. Whitney?
Aye.
Mrs. Bowen?
Aye.
Dr. Levinson?
Aye.
8 ayes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Our next item on the agenda is business operations. I'd like to take items A and B together. Item C is a notification for advertisement for bids, so it's for informational only. So again, I'd like to take items A and B together. May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Are there any questions or comments from the board? Okay, seeing none, Ms. Allen, please call the roll.
Mr. Champagne?
Aye.
Mr. Falegi?
Aye.
Mr. Jankowski?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Dr. Whitney?
Aye.
Mrs. Bowen?
Aye.
Mr. Byrd?
Aye.
Dr. Levinson?
Aye.
8 ayes.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Our next item on the agenda is curriculum, educational conferences. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions from members of the board? Seeing none, Ms. Allen, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Falegi?
Aye.
Mr. Jankowski?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Dr. Whitney,
Aye.
Mrs. Bowen,
Aye.
Mr. Byrd,
Aye.
Mr. Champagne,
Aye.
Dr. Levinson,
Aye.
8 ayes.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Our next item is on policy. We have several items for first reading. I'd like to invite Dr. Povolitis to please discuss the policies and any comments that were received.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. I'll just provide a brief overview of the policies that are before you for first reading. Act 55 of 2022 included changes to threat assessment and school safety and security. During this reading, there are 3 main policies for review and then 5 additional policies that contain supporting language that refers back to policy 236.1. So the first policy, 236.1, is threat assessment. This is a new policy. It's developed to address the requirements of new requirements in the school code regarding threat assessment. Revisions to the school code section now require training and communication related to threat assessment to be completed annually. Does anyone have any questions for policy 236.1?
Mr. Champagne.
Yeah, I have a few comments. On page 4 of 8, under information for students, parents, guardians, and staff, the second paragraph, the last sentence, it says, informational material shall be available for review by parents and guardians, Where above it says, the threat assessment team shall make available age-appropriate information material to students. I'm just wondering, should it be the same language, shall make available, or should they be required to be provided to the parents at the same time they're provided to the students?
We can review that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I know there's a bunch of quotations at the end, so I didn't know if that was because of that or not.
Sure.
And then on page 5 of 8, under inquiry and assessment, it's the third paragraph from the bottom. It says, the threat assessment team shall establish and implement procedures in accordance with the district's memorandum of understanding. And MOU is not, the memorandum of understanding is not defined, but further in there, it talks about it is with law enforcement. So I just would like the language to be the same as, I think it's on page 7 of 8. It says the memorandum of understanding with local law enforcement authorities. So just, I think they should be consistent in terms of how they're used in that. And then on page 6 of 8, item number 6, it says with prior parental consent. Should that be with prior parental or guardian consent? Because you use parent and guardian throughout the policy, so I just
Sure.
think that they should be consistent.
Thank you. That's a good point. We'll make that change.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Champagne. Any additional questions or comments? Okay, please continue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Policy 805, Emergency Preparedness and Response. Act 55 of 2022 established new requirements for training of school employees on the topics outlined in the school code for safety and security training. There's very specific, detailed outline training, which is included in the policy. Any questions on policy 805?
Any questions? All right, no questions?
Thank you. And policy 805.2, school security personnel. This policy guide on school security personnel was revised to reflect language regarding school safety and security and new training and other requirements specific to the school safety and security coordinator. Anyone have any questions on 805.2?
Mr. Champagne.
Yes, on, under the delegation of responsibility, item 3, it says coordinated training and resources for students, staff, and related situational awareness, trauma-informed approaches, behavioral health awareness, suicide, and bullying. Our policy is bullying and cyberbullying, and I'm just wondering if it should be bullying and / cyberbullying awareness, because that's how we define our policy.
Okay, take a look at that. Thank you.
And then on the last page, that paragraph, it says, in the fourth line, it says district shall coordinate with the law enforcement. Is it local law enforcement or with the local law enforcement? What is it? So maybe Mr. Fisher can take a look at that.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions or comments?
The remaining 5 policies, I'll just kind of pull them together because the only reason they're before you is because of language in 236.1. So the policies, these 5 policies, there's no new language except for specific to if the policy 236.1 is approved on threat assessment.
Are there any questions, comments, or concerns? Mr. Champagne?
Yes. On 218, under definitions of weapon, it says, you deleted the shall include but not limited to, and why, I'm wondering why you did that.
I think this is a specific recommendation from PSBA, so I can look into it and get back to you
I
with the
would think we
response.
want it to be open-ended more than, because weapons, the definition of weapon.
Sure, I can look into that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Whitney?
Hi, yeah, and 146.1, on page 3 of 5. The statement that's been added there, number 6, threat assessment policy and practices that focus on understanding a student's background in order to appropriately assess behavior and address the student's needs. Can you define that or clarify what that means? Understanding a student's background is a little vague to me.
Yeah, so I believe with many of these policies and the wording with the threat assessment team, so essentially the threat assessment team kind of has information on the student, and so they can look into details as needed, meaning school records and information, previous discipline issues and things like that.
Okay, so this is clarifying that they would have a different level of access. By virtue of being on the threat assessment team, they would have access to certain
Correct.
disciplinary records. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions, comments, concerns? Does that conclude your review?
Does, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Povolitis. Just a reminder to the board that we'll have this again next meeting for second reading, so please continue to review and direct your questions to the administration as they come up. Next item on the agenda is other educational entities. Dr. Whitney, your second report.
Yes, CLIU board met on September 19th. There were some presentations on a couple of items that I just want to highlight. One is the annual presentation of the Annie Sullivan Award, which is given to one of their staff members who best exemplifies the ideals of service to students with disabilities. And this year it was given to Miss Judy Mayer, an occupational therapist, 45 years of experience, 19 with the CLIU. And it was just a really wonderful highlight of how one person can really make a difference in this field. And she's a real advocate for the field and in getting more people into the field of occupational therapy. There was also a presentation on the extended school year program that CLIU runs this summer. And of course, the purpose of the extended school year program is to continue skills that are built during the academic year so that they're not lost in the summertime. This year, they served 272 students across all the districts. Some amazing statistics, 6,000 minutes of occupational therapy, 19,000 minutes of speech therapy were given during this extended school year program this year in 2022. And then finally, and this is a really wonderful program that CLIU, the Carbon Lehigh Special Needs Children's Foundation operates in conjunction with an organization called Variety Pittsburgh. And Blackburn's Medical Equipment. This is their adaptive bicycle and stroller program. In the 4 years that this program has been in existence and that the foundation has partnered with Variety Pittsburgh, they've been able to give 30 adaptive bicycles and strollers to children and families, children who otherwise would not be able to ride a bike, and to have that privilege. And this year, they had a ceremony a couple of weeks back where they gave 4 new bikes and 1 stroller to 5 families. And it's a wonderful occasion. The medical equipment, Blackburn's medical equipment, which makes the bikes and strollers, is there to provide training for the families to make sure that they are very clear how to use them. And then they let the kids ride them out into the parking lot, and they give them a chance to try them out for everybody to see. And it's just a really, it's a heartwarming event, and it's a wonderful program. So, if anyone has a desire to support this, you can certainly do that through the Carbon Lehigh Special Needs Children's Foundation, which is the foundational arm of the CLIU. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Whitney. Any questions or comments from the board for Dr. Whitney? Okay. Again, thank you for being our representative. Moving on, there are no other items in terms of announcements. There had been an executive session scheduled for this evening, but that was canceled. Our next regular board meeting is scheduled for Monday, October 10th, in this room at 7:30. As there is no further business, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please identify by saying aye.
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 And opposed?